Today, class, I want to begin to graph sine and cosine. Sine and cosine go on and on forever, but we're going to graph a certain amount of sine and cosine. We're going to try and graph one period. We're going to discuss period, amplitude, shift. Today, we're going to talk about just graphing the sine and cosine, and then we'll talk about amplitude. My video will go here when I'm done. You have some other videos if you need them. This is a whole lesson on amplitude, period, frequency, phase, and shift. We're not ready for all those yet, but it'll be a great review before your next test. From the unit circle, we get the fact that the cosine of 0 is 1 and the sine is 0. At 90 degrees, cosine is 0, sine is 1. At 180 degrees, we get cosine is -1 and sine is 0. At 270 degrees, we get cosine is 0, sine is 1. So I put those into my chart. We could graph this by hand, but since I've given you all graphic calculator, you'll have the TI-83 calculator. I'm going to show you what it looks like here. Y equal sine x. Looks like that one. And once again, at 0, it's 0. At 2 pi, which is about 6.2, it is 0. At -2 pi, which is about 6.2, it's 0. Then it's 1, -1, 1, -1. We're looking at two periods. A period is peak to peak or valley to valley. So from here to here, and notice what my quadrants are now, since I'm on my graphing calculator in trig. That's not 5, that is -3 pi divided by 2. It's 270 degrees negative. And it goes one high. Here I'm at -90. Here I'm at pi divided by 2, which is 90. I'm at 90, comma 1. And here I'm at 270, comma -1. What happens when I put cosine beside that? Y equal cosine x. The cosine is the green one now. The original sine is the blue one. When cosine is 0, sine is -1. And when cosine is 0, sine is -1. When cosine is 0, +1. The chart. Radians and degrees, there's sine. We've just brought up cosine, so let me bring it up. Hey, when cosine is 1, sine is 0. When sine is 1, cosine is 0. When cosine is -1, we get 0 for sine. And when sine is -1, we get 0 for cosine. When I go back to my graph, you can see that when this is 1, this is 0. When the blue one is 1, green one is 0. When the green one is 0, the blue one is 1. When the blue one is 1, cosine is 0. So that's how we're going to graph sine and cosine. I'm going to stop the film now and let you graph sine and cosine. These are the transformations of sine and cosine that are possible. Today, we're only going to talk about one. Amplitude is out here, A, out in front of sine. It will make your graph taller or shorter. We've got K in here, that is period, but we will talk about it at a later time. C in here is phase shift. It will move your graph to the right or to the left. And D is a vertical shift. It will move your graph up or down. Now the sine is still the basic graph, cosine is still the basic graph, but we could put something in A that would affect it. We could change K that would affect it. We could put C in that would move it sideways. We could put D in that would move the graph up and down. That's a lot to get in one lesson. So today we're just going to talk about amplitude. A. Amplitude makes your graph higher or lower. Y equals 4 sine X is going to be different than Y equals sine X. Let's go back up to my T graph. There's cosine. And here is what happens when I multiply the function by 4. The 1 becomes 4, but the 0 is still 0. The minus 1 becomes minus 4. The minus 1 becomes minus 4. Now, this is going to be the same graph you had a minute ago, except for it's going to be 4 taller. How would we get it shorter? We could make that 4 1/4. So let's do a few of these. Now the amplitude is going to go in front of the sine function. 27 times sine is going to be the same sine function, except it's going to go 27 high instead of 1 high and 1 low. So actually A has an absolute value because it's not only 1, it's also minus 1. And that's what we're going to do with that. That's amplitude.